All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening today. So I'm Michael Kong, the CEO of Fantom Foundation. And today, I want to talk about how do you build a network. So what do I mean by that, right? Well, a network consists of, I think, kind of two main things, right? They consist of users, and they consist of the technology or the platform, right? That allows users to use the technology for whatever purpose it might be, whether it's like DeFi, NFTs, or whatever sort of applications that are out there, right? So at Fantom, we're obsessed with innovation. And I'll go into a bit more specific detail about what I mean by that. Because obviously, that's a word that a lot of people would like to use a lot, right? But what exactly is innovation, right? It's about creating stuff, it's about creating new technology, it's about creating new stuff that other people haven't really seen before, right? That kind of goes beyond what currently already exists to achieve a lot of things and to solve a lot of problems. So we're building a network of value for everyone. And what I mean by that is whatever type of user you are, whatever type of developer you are, we're building for you if you're looking to build an application that uses blockchain technology in some sort of way. So what we know creates value, speed. Well, obviously, you need to have a fast network out there that can execute transactions on a fast basis. Because obviously, if people are waiting for their transactions to be executed, and it takes a long time, then people are not going to really want to be using that sort of like application or that sort of network, right? And we see that all of the time. For example, web applications. The speed, or what we call time to finality, is so crucial for those networks because people demand that they're able to get results as quickly as possible to do what they want because people are kind of short on time. Scalability. So that's being able to handle large number of transactions per second, right? Or what we call TPS. So obviously, if your network can only handle a very limited amount of TPS, there's only so many applications or users that can use your network at any point in time. So the higher the TPS or the higher the network throughput, the more important it is and the more significant it is because basically the more users you can get on your network. Security. Well, obviously, particularly to do with blockchain technology or using the internet in general, security is paramount. There are a lot of exploits that happen with regards to blockchain technology. There's a lot of exploits that happen with regards to internet technologies as a whole. And what you need to do is, you need to always keep security in mind whenever you're optimizing for speed and security and speed and scalability and that sort of thing, right? And so, security is paramount in terms of anything that you're trying to innovate when it comes to your chain. And fourthly, builders, right? And the builders are the people that we're ultimately doing the technology for, right? In terms of speed, scalability, and security, it all comes down to the builders, right? The people who are actually building the applications that are going to be used on your network. So, building a better supply side. And what I mean by that are the three S's I talked about before: speed, scalability, and security. Well, we have new technology coming out that will go into a lot more detail that allows us to process over 7 million transactions per hour. And that's no exaggeration, right? Because it is based on a lot of testing that we've done on a lot of real-life data, and we've been able to generate substantial results with new technology we've got coming out. And we can process 2,000 transactions per second. In fact, even that number is low compared to what we've been able to achieve lately. But this is more of a conservative number that I'm displaying on my screen. So there's three main components with the new technology that I'm talking about. And I know that I've kind of talked about this in previous presentations before, right? We're building a new Fantom virtual machine to replace the Ethereum virtual machine. So that as a developer, you'll be able to develop your applications in the programming languages familiar with you, like Solidity, but you're running through a different virtual machine that is optimized so you can execute your smart contract transactions a lot faster. We've also been able to substantially reduce the storage requirements for nodes, and I'll show you specifically what those sorts of results have been, but they are very much substantial, and it all kind of ties in also to achieving scalability and speed as well, as I'll explain further on. And we're also optimizing the user client, or what we call the Go Opera client. So the Opera mainnet is the mainnet of like the Fantom network, and the Go Opera is basically the Golang implementation or the client that connects you to that blockchain. And we've been able to do a lot of optimizations with it. And we've got all of this technology coming out in the public testnet in October 2023. So just this month, in a couple of weeks, the testnets are already being set up, so you'll be able to see the benefits for yourself. It won't just be something that's theoretical. In terms of the testings that we've been able to do, these are kind of the specifications. I won't go into kind of like all of the technical details about it, but they definitely exceed the requirements that we need for the network. In fact, in our own testing, we've been able to achieve substantial results with only using maybe like 10 or 15% of the sort of specifications that you see on your screen there. And these are the sorts of like testings that parameters that we've been using. So Fantom is a proof of stake network. We assume the worst case performance, which is evenly staked nodes. Obviously, with the Fantom mainnet, there's unevenly staked nodes because some nodes stake more or have more FTM dedicated to it than others. But we like to assume, the worst case for our testing. And the transactions that we're using to test with are very similar to the workload on the Fantom mainnet. So when we did our testing on the Fantom mainnet, transactions would average consume around 200,000 gas per second. So we mimicked that in our own private testnet as well. And more than 90% of the transactions are all smart contract based. As you can see here, very few wallet-to-wallet transfers or the simple transfers. These are the more complicated transactions, right? And so what are the results have we been able to generate? We've been able to generate more than 400 million gas per second, right? We've been able to consume a fraction of storage compared to like the mainnet, and I'll show you the comparisons on another slide. We've been able to achieve just over 2,000 transactions per second, and we've been able to maintain a time to finality, or how long it takes to confirm transactions, of just a bit under a second. And in fact, the time to finality results are even better now in our latest iteration of testing compared to what I'm displaying on the screen there. But these are some more preliminary results just going through it, right? So you can see that compared to the Fantom mainnet, we've got 1 to 2 orders of magnitude difference in terms of the network throughput or the scalability, as I talked about in the previous slide, right? We've been able to get substantial reductions in storage as well. So the number that you see on your screen there relates to an archive node, and an archive node is basically all the history of the node that you need in order to verify all of the data that's ever taken place, right? It's the node that requires the most storage overall. And as you can see on your screen there for the Fantom network, it is about 11 terabytes or 11,000 gigabytes. We've been able to reduce that down to under 850 gigabytes on your screen. And so that's an approximately a 92% reduction in storage. And in fact, we can reduce the storage even further than that when it comes to validator nodes or non-archive nodes, because we've been able to remove a lot of logs and other parts of history that's not needed in order to verify transactions on the network. But also crucially is how long it takes to sync a node. So right now, we're not even able to really tell you specifically how long it takes to sync a node, because for the mainnet, it literally would take more than a month, right? And it's just too long for us to even know, but we know it's somewhere in the order of a few months, right? Testing an archive node, running it from scratch to the full data on the Fantom mainnet takes less than 2 days. And these are the benefits that users will be able to see on the testnet and the mainnet when it's launched. But also, there's further benefits as well, which is we've been able to reduce the storage size of non-archive nodes substantially as well. So if you're running a validator, you need about 2 terabytes of data, absolute minimum, right? And that assumes that you're constantly pruning your nodes. So you have to take off your node, you have to constantly reduce its storage size, and that takes a lot of effort for anybody out there that's ever run any nodes before, right? In this case, we have what we call live pruning automatically on the network, which means that you can substantially reduce the storage size of your node, as you can see on the screen there, from around 2 terabytes to around 615 gigabytes. And you don't need to have any downtime for your node. Your node just keeps running, and it just keeps reducing its storage size. And so the downtime there is effectively 0, rather than half an hour to a few hours as a whole. So what are the key benefits for this? Well, your throughput can go up to 65 times higher with this new technology, and that's no exaggeration. If you consider the Fantom mainnet at the moment, which has done 30 transactions per second, and you can up that to a couple of thousand, it's very substantial. The confirmation times for the network maintain low, so we're not trading time to finality for more throughput or a decrease in security for better performance or anything like that. We're optimizing the technology that we already have and making it a lot better. We have full live pruning, as I talked about before, 2-day sync time, substantially lower hardware costs, and I'll be able to get more data on that in terms of how long it will cost for someone to run a node going forward into the future, and lower storage requirements as well. As I talked about before, being able to reduce, for example, running a validator node from 2 terabytes to 615, and in fact, being able to remove EVM logs and a whole bunch of other data, we could even cut that down potentially by half as well. And you can basically run a validator node on a laptop, right? On a laptop storage disk. You buy a MacBook, 13-inch, you'll be able to store all of the required data in order to validate transactions on the Fantom network. And there'll be some more interesting hardware tests coming forward as well. So what does this look like in terms of an updated roadmap? Well, as I mentioned before, in October, a couple of weeks or so, we'll have a private testnet, and then we'll have the first stage of the mainnet deployment happening, I think, around December or January next year. And then we'll have a second upgrade that's required as well, coming a couple of months later than that. And more longer term, towards the end of latter half of 2024, there's a lot of improvements that we can make to consensus as well as beginning our horizontal scaling research the following year in 2025, which is to do with sharding. Because ultimately, I think that's where we need to go in the end if you want to be able to keep processing substantial amounts of transactions on the network in the long term. But I also talked about the builders, right? So how are we helping out builders on the network? Well, one program is called gas monetization. So basically, dApps get an extra 15% of the transaction fees on the network. It means that every quarter, the top 12 projects that compete with one another with the highest gas usage receive a bonus on the network, right? And so far, we've been able to pay out over 100,000 FTM, combined with 500,000 FTM in the bonus round, so over 600,000 FTM, and the number keeps climbing overall. So for the next round, I think it will even be a decent amount higher than that. And the whole point of gas monetization is very similar to, say, the YouTube or the Twitter monetization, right? It encourages people to generate transactions on the network, which encourages more fees generated, which means that validators can get rewarded for validating transactions on the network, and encourages basically more user activity. So we kind of see it as a win-win for builders, users, and validators on the network, and it's something that we substantially want to grow going forward as well. But another initiative that we have is to do with launch funding related to the new technology we've got coming out, the FEM. So we're going to be doing discretionary grants going forward, and the first round will be about 1 million FTM in Q4 of this year, and we'll be choosing 5 projects at most to fund them with the 1 million FTM, and to also recommend them to a bunch of VC partners we're getting on board. And these are projects that will be vetted by the foundation and others to do with the uniqueness, the ability to get really popular, how much value they create for users on the network, and I think that's really important. We've also had we also are going to be employing hackathons as well, as we have done in the past. So in Q1 2023, we awarded over 50,000. In Q3, we upped that to Q2, we upped it to 300,000. Combined with people who supported us, like AWS startups and Covalent, and I really thank them for that. And we also saw a lot of increase in participation. We went from, I think, a few hundred to over 1,100 participants, and I'm sure the next round will be even more popular than that. And just to highlight a game on Fantom, so S4 Kingdoms is a popular RPG game. It had, was the #1 trending game last month. It ranked 11th out of 2,000 blockchain games, and there are over 20,000 players in the first week, and it's continuing to grow as I speak. So thanks, everyone, for listening to my presentation. If you want to reach out, connect with us on Twitter @PhantomFDN. And again, thank you for listening, and I appreciate Chainlink for the opportunity to present today.